Well, things have escalated here, and welcome to our sports sedan build-off. I bought a cheap 2008 Honda Civic and Pete bought a mint E90 M3. The cheap Civic is the definition of a project with a bruised up body and questionable electric work, but did come with a 232 wheel horsepower K24 engine swap and a genuine FD2 Type R front end and a few other Type R goodies to go with it. It also came with rust and lots of it, normal though for a year-round car in our climate. It also drives about as good as it looks. So buckle up as we build this car into a truly capable track Honda, and may I say E90 M3 crushing Honda? Well, we're gonna have to stay tuned to find out on that one. Does feel like I have a mountain to climb here, fellas, but we're just gonna dive into this build, start by stripping it down and getting the bodywork off to body and paint. And if I'm honest, I am still optimistic. I spent a lot of years racing Honda Civics with K-Series motors in them and beating up on a lot of BMWs, including 3 Series ones like Pete. So, yes, I'm a little intimidated, but I still believe this thing will be an E90 M3 killer when we're done. And let's not forget to thank Turn 14 Distribution as well, who make this whole build possible, not only by supporting our channel, but because they have a lot of the Go Fast parts that you're gonna see featured on this build in stock at their massive distribution warehouses strategically located in Hatfield, Pennsylvania, Arlington, Texas, and Reno, Nevada. With 723,000 square feet of modern distribution center space, Turn 14 Distribution boasts ground shipping coverage to 45% of the US population in 1 day and 100% within 2 days. One of the things we like best about Turn 14 Distribution is their extensive line card of manufacturers, meaning they stock parts from all of our favorite brands, many of which you'll see featured on this Team Underdog Honda Civic build. Look closely and you might even spot a package headed our way from one of Turn 14 Distribution's warehouses right now. There you go, FD2 Type R front end removed. Pretty straightforward job, and as you can see, this Cybon hood has seen better days. The clear coat has failed on it pretty badly. It's really yellowed a lot, but we are going to paint it to match the rest of the car. And the question is, do we leave the vent area in exposed carbon? So like sand it down and re-clear coat it so it looks proper, but thinking if we kind of just like taped around the edge of the vent area and left it in carbon, it would look kind of cool, especially since we're going to put another thing on the car that's going to be carbon fiber that we'll show you later this episode. We're also debating about whether or not to delete these aero latch hood pins or not. I think we'll leave them, frankly. They're kind of racy, and since this car is never going to be clean and classy the way Pete's BMW is, I might as well just lean into the hot boy, race car vibe. You can also see that these FD2 headlights have seen better days. They're really badly faded, so normally we'd use like a headlight restoration kit on it if we were doing it ourselves, but since all this is going off to our buddy Richie for paint, we're gonna have him work his magic on lights. He does amazing stuff with lights. He wet sands them and then he clear coats them, and they look better than new, and they'll last much longer than your typical like headlight kit where you put a ceramic coating on it that wears off over time. So we'll have him do the headlights. And for those of you who don't know what an FD2 front end is, that is the JDM Type R front end, and the fenders that come with it are 10 mil wider than standard FD1 fenders or the FA5 Civic fenders as well. So we do get an extra 10 mil of width on each side, which is really nice for fitting wider wheels and tires on the front end of these cars, which is only going to make them faster around the racetrack. So we are going to run like a reversed staggered setup. And the front lip is a Mugen style front lip made by Cybon, which is why it's got that carbon in the middle. It's actually like an FRP with just a carbon overlay on the front of it. It's actually kind of beat up. It's had a repair job done in here. There's a crack in that corner. And again, we'll get Richie to paint this to match and do a little bit of a repair job on that cracked area, but it fits up really well and it looks really good. So I think we'll stick with that front lip. The FD2 front bumper is in excellent shape, as is the grille and all that. So man, I'm excited to make this conversion whole and really make this car look like a Type R from the outside, because to me, that is one of the best looking four-door Hondas ever made. I just love the style of the FD2. I think it's such a clean looking sedan. Yes, it may not be quite as sexy as a certain BMW, but in the Honda world, I think FD2 is about as good as they get. Underneath, the car actually appears to be in very good condition, really. For a Canadian car, it's not terribly rusty. Yeah, like the rad brackets are rusty and a lot of the nuts and bolts and so on are have surface rust, but everything's been coming out easily enough so far. The one interesting thing is they trimmed the rebar in this area here, and obviously on the other side too. And I'm assuming that has to do with the shape of that Type R front bumper cover. It must be different enough from the FA5 front bumper that this trim job is required. But it's got functioning AC, and we actually have decided that we're gonna drop the motor out of the engine bay, not just so that we can clean everything up, but because we've got to change that crank pulley. And we're also going to change the clutch, because we are adding power to this, and that stage 1 clutch is not going to hold the power we're going to make. Time to strip the rear end, and before we do that, we want to just quickly explain one thing we're going to do out back that we weren't necessarily sure we were going to do, and that is this trunk lid, which we think may be a genuine Type R since it's got this badge on it. It might not be, actually. When we look closer, like, there's no sign of it having been repainted, and it's not championship white. It's a much closer white to the taffeta white that this car came in.
And the bolt holes for the license plate are
yeah, these are not JDM width either. So we're guessing this is probably a CSX trunk. For those of you who don't know what a CSX is, in Canada we got an Acura model called the CSX, which got this FD style exterior. So like the Type R, but just without the wider front fenders. So this is probably off a CSX, and somebody's thrown the Honda badge and the Type R logo on there. That would be my best guess. The taillights are the same. So what we have instead, because race car, is this. This is a CSX trunk lid with a J's Racing style wing on it. It's not a real J's wing, because we bought this whole thing for $500, and if this was a real J's wing, it would be a $2,500 trunk lid. So, but thank you to Sean at K-Tuned. As you can tell from the license plate frame, this was on his personal car. And this is our replacement bumper. It's also a genuine Type R unit, and it's got a little bit of scuffing on the paint here, a little bit of a crack here, but it's much, much better condition than that one. You can see the corner here is fully intact. So this one, with a fresh paint job, a little bit of a touch up from Richie, will be a direct bolt on and good to go. As for price, Pete found this for a whopping $600 US, 800 Canadian, which is a smoking deal. These are normally quite expensive. So yes, I'm using Pete's shopping skills, even though theoretically, this is my build, but it's still a team effort around here. And speaking of which, he also made a post asking for help finding genuine Type R side skirts, because that was the one piece that was missing on this car. And a local guy responded to that and said he had a set. So these are brand new FD2 Type R side skirts, which have all the nice clips on it and everything. Well, things have escalated here, and let me tell you the whole story here. Pete dropped all the body parts off to Richie, our body and paint guy, and he called us this weekend and said, you know what, these cars are so simple. He's painted a million of them. He's like, the only way you're gonna get a perfect paint match is if I just paint the whole car. I'm only gonna charge you a little bit more because we've already brought him so much of the car for paint anyway. He's like, just bring it to me. I've got some time right now, so I'm gonna knock this out for you real quick and do a complete nose to tail paint job on it. We're not gonna get fancy and take all the windows out. It's just gonna be a nice respray, and obviously all the other panels will be painted the way they should be. Richie always does amazing work for us, so we're not worried at all about the quality. And this way we'll get a perfect paint match from front to rear, and it gives us the opportunity to think about championship white rather than this taffeta white.
Oh, DP, now we're talking.
FD2 Type R full look. Maybe that's the way to go.
A few moments later.
And just like that, the car is back at our shop in championship white, and man, does it ever look good. This has given me so much legit JDM Type R vibes. I'm really stoked on what a great job Richie did on it. So thank you again, Richie. You knocked this out of the park, and you got it done in 2 weeks. A complete respray in 2 weeks is pretty incredible. So, and I mean, the quality of his paintwork, everything is always top notch with Richie. So thank you again, sir. And now we're going to go ahead and make the executive decision to drop the engine, because we've got some work to do that's going to make it just so much easier with the engine out of the car. So let's get it on the lift and get that motor out of there. pry bar on it, or?
They're like pretty, I think they're jammed up. Hold on. They're like on an angle.
Yeah.
Oh, because they got these collars on them.
Oh, this is like the spoon.
Those are the spoon
thing,
collar things, yeah. There it goes. The only issue we're gonna have is whether this AC is gonna clear in here. See, that's gonna stay in here.
Yeah, but
It doesn't look like
it's got no chance of clearing.
No chance?
No chance.
We're going back up with the engine here because we realized that in order to have the AC compressor, which we want to leave on, we don't want to have to take out all of the refrigerant. We want to leave it on the vehicle. That means we disconnected it from the engine, but with the subframe on, we don't have enough space to make it work. So what we're going to do is put this engine back up, bolt on the engine mounts up top again, and then just drop the whole subframe. Okay. Yeah. Wow. The motor
is hanging. That's a little unnerving, isn't it?
Yeah. Now this will totally clear what we needed it to clear. Yeah, a little more. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, we'll clear the AC here.
Okay. There it is.
There we have it, our K24 bottom end, K20Z top end on the floor. And as far as engine removals go, that was actually pretty darn easy, wasn't it, Pete? It's just like, you know, unplug the harness, unplug all the usual
Certainly
stuff.
wasn't an Evo 6.
Yeah, it's certainly much easier.
But I bet you the M3 engine removal process will be just as easy, DP.
I mean, rear drive engines usually are pretty easy, but we don't want to pull that motor out. If we do, it means something terrible has happened, and let's hope that's not the case. Anyway, it's nice to see this out. You can see we do have a bit of a leak under the crank pulley, so we'll get to that in the next episode. We're going to do a bunch of cleanup and start swapping parts over for the power adder that's going to be going on here. We also noticed that this header, you know, dented the tunnel a little. We think that's a K24 thing because the K24 is taller, which put the header pretty much up against the tunnel. It looks like they did some massaging of it here with a hammer and maybe some heat, considering the paint's falling off. Anyway, gearbox has got to come off too. We're going to change out the clutch. What else did we see in there, PT? We saw that the this Hasport rear mount, being polyfilled, we think was contributing quite a lot to the NVH. We love Hasport, we don't love poly mounts, so we're going to go to hardened rubber ones instead. This front mount is actually quite an interesting one. Somebody pounded a bunch of, I don't know, urethane or like window caulk or something in there to try to fix what I assume was a blown out mount, or maybe just try to stiffen up the OEM one, but it actually still has a lot of play in it. So we're going to replace this DIY jobby with a proper one from Hard Race. On the knuckles, you'll see the axles are still in there, and that's because no matter how hard we tried, and we tried heat and impact and every other, you know, giant breaker bars, we could not get the axle nuts off. So we're actually going to run these up the road to like a truck place that'll have the power to get those axle nuts off. Then we get the axles out, we'll replace those nuts, we'll service the axles if they need any help. But it's otherwise, I think, pretty straightforward, isn't it, Pete? There's not a lot to do here before we can put this back in. There's a lot of cleanup to do, and I shouldn't say there's not a lot to do. There's a lot to do, really. We gotta do the clutch and a bunch of other stuff, but that is all coming in the next episode. Before we wrap this video, there is the issue of budget to address. A lot of you guys have been asking, what are your budgets on this? Are you building toward a target? And the answer to that is yes and no. In our previous build-off with my DC2 Integra and Pete's EK hatchback, we did set a budget cap, and then we had penalties if you went over that cap. We give you like a running tally of the build cost in every episode, but in this series we decided to not go down that route because we felt that was a little forced, maybe not the most realistic approach. When you build a car, you don't generally like add up every penny unless you're an accountant. So we're gonna build these cars to the levels we think they both need to get to beat the other car. And I'm gonna spend what I think I need on the Civic to beat that E90 M3. And then at the end of the series, we will show you the build totals for both cars, and then we'll see if I had to spend way more money than it would have cost me to buy an E90 M3 to try to compete with that car, or the other way around. Maybe I come in quite a bit cheaper and this turns out to be like an amazing value and it's faster than the M3. Obviously that's my hope, but I'm not gonna build this car with cheap parts or anything like that. I'm gonna build it with the best stuff I can choose for this car to try to beat that M3. So that's our strategy on the budget, everyone. Hope that makes sense to you, and I hope you're enjoying this series so far. I know I'm loving this build. I'm really excited to get deeper into it. We do have power adders, you know, wheel and tire upgrades, all kinds of great stuff coming in the next episode. So stay tuned for all that, and we'll see if this thing really is an M3 killer soon enough.